What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Soulscast, episode number 25.
Well done.
Thank you. My name is Jake Landis, and with me, as always, pursueth himself, Bryce Gardner.
What's up, guys?
Thanks for joining me on the cast today, sir.
Anytime. Anytime.
That is right.
I'm just proud of us. We even remembered it's episode 25.
Me too.
Yeah.
So we have a ton to talk about on today's cast. PvP skills, found the best dex weapon. Vaati Vidya is talking about Millwood Knights. And EMB doesn't do YouTube anymore. I don't know. We have a lot to talk about, guys. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into it with the first story of the day. And that's going to be PvP skills, discovering the best dex weapon in the entire game.
Is discovering the right way to put it, or is it claiming? Dude, I don't know. It's hard. It's
debatable. I mean,
he makes a good case.
Let's go ahead and let him kind of speak for himself here on this, all right?
Okay. So the Chaos Blade has a bit more damage. However, the Crow Quills can benefit greatly from the Leo Ring since most of its attacks are thrust attacks. So on counters, it will most likely do more damage, and not just that. You can buff the Crow Quills with resins or magic buffs, which will take its damage even further, while the Chaos Blade cannot do that. It is also much faster than the Chaos Blade, and finally, it has a stylish moveset that the Chaos Blade can only dream of. So yes guys, the Crow Quills is the best dexterity weapon in Dark Souls 3.
So yeah, I mean, he lays out his case pretty well for why he's saying it's the best dex weapon in Dark Souls 3.
It's also got some dirty combos. That R1, R1, L1 with the claws into another R1 looks like it could be pretty hard to anticipate parry because the L1 comes out so fast.
Yeah, and I don't even think like his
L2
case
maybe.
His case is primarily saying that, you know, even statistics wise it's the best dex weapon, but
just
I also
damage wise.
But I also think, I mean, even though it has less base damage than Chaos Blade, because it's infusible, because it's buffable,
and it also doesn't have the negative effect of doing damage to yourself, which
exactly
turns me off from the Chaos Blade. It always has. I know it's good, but it's just not, like, I don't like to hurt myself.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean,
not worth it.
That can be detrimental. But the other thing, kind of going off of what you were just saying a second ago, I think that its greatest asset might be its moveset in general.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It just does some really cool things. It has the inherent ability to throw a projectile, which is really cool.
It's also nice, like we said, about buffing and infusing. If you have a weapon that only requires dex with a low strength requirement, that gives you the opportunity to, like, maybe throw some intellect in there, maybe throw some faith or some endurance, depending on what you're trying to do. So it's like that also leads to it to be, you know, given that the best dex weapon in Dark Souls 3 because it's not a quality weapon.
And the other thing too is that he talks about how it can benefit from the Leo Ring as well, since it is a rapier and it does do thrust damage.
Imagine that, a strong thrusting sword.
Right, in Dark Souls 3 that never happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's pretty cool. I'm hyped to see a good dex weapon because dex has been notoriously bad in Dark Souls 3 so far.
Yeah, it hasn't been very enjoyable to me. I've just been all about that strength life or the quality life.
Quality, pretty much, yeah.
Quality.
So it's cool to see a really, not only like a high damaging dex weapon, but also a dex weapon that does some really cool things and has really cool moveset as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them put so much time and effort into actually making a rapier cool.
Yeah.
Like
as opposed to just like the S-Stock or some
cool,
shit.
But I've never really dug it, you know, like it's a little different, but it's just a bunch of pokes. But this one, still a bunch of pokes, but it has a lot more utility than any other rapier in the game.
Yeah.
Which is pretty freaking cool.
Definitely. And just the fact that it does tie in with the new DLC so much that it's those enemies that you fight that are super hard. Like the hardest enemies you get to in the DLC, like in the
Corvian Knights.
The Corvian Knights in the early to mid part of the DLC are those Corvian Knights. And they wrecked the shit out of me, at least. I don't know about you guys, but they messed me up pretty good.
Yeah, they got me a couple times. The first one I killed really easy, so I got kind of cocky with the second one, and they just rotoed me.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they can definitely show up out of nowhere and do some surprising damage. So it's cool to see that we actually get the weapon of the enemy that probably messed up so many players.
Yeah.
But we have so much to get to. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second video of the cast. Vaati Vidya just released his lore video about the Millwood Knights, which I was super pumped to see. Maybe my favorite enemy type from the DLC. Actually, definitely my favorite enemy type from the DLC.
Pretty cool. For me, it's hard to say if it's them or the Corvians, because the Corvians are pretty cool as well.
Right. So yeah, and I mean, it's honestly, as far as what we're able to, discern from item descriptions and stuff like that, it doesn't leave us with much. So it's awesome to see Vaati getting out there pretty quickly and making a video about these guys.
And I think it's, as always, a very quality video from him. And I think he's pulled about as much out of the lore as you can about them. And in some ways, it's bittersweet, because it even seems they're vague. Dark Souls is vague, but they're even their own type of vague inside of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
If we don't get some answers onto what exactly this ethereal tree is that they're talking about and where exactly they come from, if we don't get some answers on what's going on with them, it's gonna be it's gonna be one of those things that's just always up for speculation. There's just not enough.
So let's go ahead and just take a look and see what Vaati actually has to say about these guys.
Yeah.
Clearly at the heart of their civilization. This tree appears on their weaponry, on their capes, on their shields, and even their helmets are adorned with antlers believed to grow from the blessed beast of the ethereal oak. Judging from the horns, I think that would be a kind of stag. Strange, right? It's a very curious tree from all descriptions, and it also appears to be a very bountiful tree, considering they cut from it the horns for their helmets, and maybe even the wood for their shields. And I'm very confident that the ethereal oak is actually a spirit tree, as they're described in other item descriptions.
Now, he says that he thinks that the horns were cut from the tree.
No.
It comes across that way.
But that's not what he actually says. He
says the beast of the ethereal.
Yeah, he says I'm pretty sure he says, my notes say stag, sacred beast of the ethereal oak.
Yeah.
So when he's actually saying it, it seems like he's talking about cutting it straight from the tree, but going back and listening to it a little bit more closely, I'll throw that clip in real quick just to repeat it.
Even their helmets are adorned with antlers believed to grow from the blessed beast of the ethereal oak.
He says the beast of the ethereal oak. So, I mean, it kind of leaves us to question, does this oak tree is this oak tree giving life? Is this oak tree, is this it is an oak, right?
They call it the ethereal oak.
Ethereal oak. Is this tree actually creating life forms? And the word ethereal is actually kind of like a ghostly, non-physical, otherworldly sort of thing. So, I mean, he talks about it being...
He talks about it. Item descriptions talk about it. We get some hints to it. And, we've had some other trees as he brings up in the video.
Right.
But it's all still so...
What does he call those?
Vague, spirit trees?
Spirit trees, yeah. So he
And
thinks the ethereal oak is a spirit tree, and he's probably right. I mean,
something we talked about when we were making our notes is that it seems like every time there's a spirit tree, it gets corrupted.
Yeah.
As if they absorb corruption. There was the tree in the undead area, the village in Dark Souls 3, the Curse-Rotted
Greatwood, yeah.
It basically sucked a lot of the rotten and the curses out of the area around it for a while until it succumbed. In Shulva in Dark Souls 2, the Poison City, there's one of those trees. And then also in the area close to the Rotten in Dark Souls 2, there's another one of those trees. And it seems kind of peculiar to me that also in a rotten area or an area infested with rot, there are these people who are linked to the trees. So it makes me wonder if we're going to get some more info about that in the next DLC. The tree is
definitely interesting, and they've been pretty prevalent throughout the series. Another thing I want to talk about with the Millwood Knights is their sworn enemy, which is the Abyss Dragon, Calamite, as you guys can see right here, Vaati talks about. I mean, we talked about this even last week a little bit. I think I don't know if it was actually on the cast or just privately.
If we were talking about
but
it,
we were talking about how it says in their item description of the great bow that they made the great bow to slay the abyss dragon, and it's like you hear abyss dragon, it makes you think of Calamite. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, there's no other dragon that would really fit that description quite as well as Calamite. So that's really interesting.
Yep. Absolutely.
Makes you wonder if, I mean, we fight Calamite in Dark Souls 1 DLC. We go back in time and we go to Ulasil.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, were the Millwood Knights from an area close to Ulasil? Like back in the day, did Calamite visit that area as well, and kind of destroy a lot of their civilization, and then that's why they were maybe it destroyed the ethereal oak and then and didn't kill the Millwood Knights, but then they were so distraught by the loss of their tree that they were sucked into the painting because they were forlorn that much.
It's really hard to say, and it's nice to see Vaati pumping out videos like this again.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely still more to come. He's been teasing more videos at the end of every video, and that's awesome. That's like something that I think we've been lacking a little bit, is some solid Vaati output.
Right.
And it's nice to see that for sure.
Yeah. And we touched on that last week, and I think that he was probably, kind of like a lot of us were, probably just waiting on this DLC to hit because he knew it was going to come.
Yeah.
And he knew, like, working on anything and then that hits, it's kind of like you can't pump. He's not going to start pumping out videos about random NPCs from the main game and then right in the middle of when the DLC hits, and then everyone wants stuff about the DLC. So he's probably sitting on some stuff waiting on the DLC, and then I bet he'll even have some more stuff to come after the DLC kind of wraps up, and he might even be sitting on some other lore stuff that he might have done already that he's just kind of waiting on.
For sure.
I wouldn't be surprised. He probably is. His next lore video that isn't out for like a week or so is available early to his Patreon subscribers. So that's something for you guys to think about. I know, like I've said before, if you're watching Next Level X, you're probably already a Vaati fan. So go over there and throw him a few bones for all the good work he does. But moving right along, I mean, this next video comes to us from the Ashen Hollow, which is, he's a pretty new Souls YouTuber. He's found a lot of success really quick. He kind of took up that Epic Name Bro mantle. I mean, we'll talk about Epic Name Bro here in a little bit, but he really kind of jumped in there where there was a void in the market and started making some really good lore videos. Yeah. But the video that we're going to talk about from him today actually isn't one of his specific lore videos. It's actually another Souls podcast.
Quality Souls
definitely really good, and like that's why we want to shout it out and talk about it on the show today, because so many times you try and find Souls podcasts and it's kind of rinky-dink, kind of thrown together. That was kind of what led us to making this show. So to see another YouTuber doing a Souls podcast and doing it well and doing it right, it is awesome. And he actually brings together some other content creators in order to, I think he does it through Skype.
Which, like, props to them just for organizing all of that. Yeah. Because it's a huge pain in the ass when you have that many different people on Skype trying to get everything to not look laggy and everything to time up, and they did a good job.
It looks good. I'm really impressed. The people on the cast are the Ashen Hollow, obviously, Redgrave, who apparently I haven't read it yet, but apparently wrote a book about Bloodborne.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah.
Wow.
He says it's really long and boring, but and then you have Aegon of Astora and JSF, who I'm not super familiar with, but he throws out some good points as well. So let's go ahead and toss it over to these guys and see what they have to say. This podcast is actually, it's about the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, and they're speculating.
Theorizing on.
They're speculating in this clip about the origin of the painter girl that is upstairs from where you talked to Frida.
Something we talked about last week. It's nice to get some more follow up from the community on this.
Definitely. This actually.
So I guess what we're going to start with, as we were just kind of talking about before we started, was the identity of the painter.
The little girl?
Yes.
The painter.
Yeah. Ariamis. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Why don't you speak to that first, and then we'll talk about that.
Oh, me?
Yeah. No, the other grade.
Alright, no, shut the fuck up. Alright, so, the only thing you know about Ariamis is not the name of the painted world in Dark Souls 1, because there's the line where Priscilla kills you. It's sometimes when Priscilla kills you, she'd say, I don't remember the exact line, it's something like, why do you think Ariamis made this land? Or why do you think this land was painted by... It's something like that, I don't remember the exact line.
So yeah, they're all speculating in this cast about... it's an hour and a half long cast, so they talk about a lot of stuff in there, and you guys should definitely go check out that podcast. There will be a link in the description. But in that clip, they're talking about who that little girl actually is,
who she may be, who they think she might be.
Yeah, it's just like some theories really, because there's no concrete evidence for anything. But Redgrave is proposing that the little girl is actually Ariamis, the painter of the original painted world that we visit in Dark Souls 1, via some sort of time is convoluted in Dark Souls bullshit.
I can see how he would say that, and that's actually one of the other things they touch on in this that, like, we've talked about a lot, is, like, time's convoluted. Is that just a cop-out to make anything work?
Right.
Or is that something that actually adds
or is that
intensity to the game?
A unique plot device?
Yeah. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I go both ways on that.
It's hard to say. I mean, it's so ingrained in what Dark Souls is, as far as all the way into what the PvP is, and like how the even in the lore of the main story as well. Like the fact that every person who plays Dark Souls is a chosen undead who has gone through the cycle and linked the flame, and it's like kind of just it all fits together in a lot of really multifaceted ways. It's but
like just like how it's so easy for them to be like Ariandel is probably Ariamis, or the painter of the first painted world in Dark Souls 1 could be this one from Dark Souls 3, and to me I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like they're in relation. Like they're kin to each other.
Right.
The two painters what I'm talking about. And I also feel as if the painters might be some demigod type beings who
have the ability to create
kind of
worlds.
transcend time, like just as the flame was always there, like they're always there.
Well, it's also interesting too that Priscilla didn't create the first painted world, but she was definitely some sort of figure of power inside the painted world, kind of similar to Frida from Ariandel.
It's like an outlet for people who don't want to be part of the cycle anymore, but then become part of another cycle.
A cycle within the painting.
So it's almost like this biblical-esque duality to things, that no matter what you do, you're stuck in the cycle.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's really also interesting to note that she shares a lot of similarities with Priscilla. It's really just too hard to tell. It like they say in the podcast, this DLC offers up a lot more questions than answers to pretty much everything in Dark Souls.
Yeah, and have you seen any kind of ETA on the next DLC?
No, they're not going to talk about that for a little while. But getting close to wrapping up the show here, before we go, I really quickly want to talk about Epic Name Bro. One of my favorite Souls YouTubers. Really been missing him in YouTube lately, and been kind of craving some of his content. Come to find out, unbeknownst to me, he's just moved over to Twitch, and that's pretty much where he does all his stuff now. He streams, he's got a schedule. It's pretty much what he's doing full time now. And it had just totally like passed me by. I hadn't realized he had made that switch over there. And so I went over there and, threw him a follow and started watching some of his streams and stuff. And it's really good. Same old epic name, bro. Really good. A lot of his, he always had some good lore stuff, but really just his personality, and he's just enjoyable dude to listen to and has some really cool insights into the game.
Absolutely.
So I definitely just wanted to shout that out as well. If you're an Epic Name Bro fan, go check him out on Twitch. He is the dude. So yeah, make sure you go and check him out. But guys, that about wraps up episode number 25 of Soulscast. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave us a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, go ahead and throw us a sub. You'll be updated every time we post a video. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to praise the sun. Praise it. Peace, guys.